Welcome back to my channel all. Throughout this episode I'm going to be talking about something a little different today. Instead of talking about neurodiversity, I'm going to talk about something called neurotypical disorder, or we could say neurotypicality. Overall, neurotypicality is a neurobiological disorder preoccupied with social concerns, a delusional sense of superiority, and an obsession with conformity. So what about the signs and symptoms of neurotypicality? We often see those with neurotypicality have deficits with independent thinking, and due to this deficit in independent thinking, they are more prone to group thinking. And all this group thinking which goes on, it causes things such as wars for group thinking. That's what caused World War One, World War Two. I don't see this proneness to group thinking as a very good thing. Being so prone to it. I think you should at least be able to question it, those of you who suffer from neurotypicality. The second deficit is the inability to uphold one's own moral values because of the obsession with conformity. And this often results in living as hypocrites. You go preaching one thing, but you live by another. Those of you who suffer from neurotypicality, like you claim it's moral to tell the truth, but when out and about in society, you don't tell the truth. You have this cognitive dishonesty kind of idea inside yourselves. And the next one is they are so easily distracted by the people around them that they can't stay focused on a task. Like they might be in a work environment, but if someone just comes along, then wants to chit chat about something like the weather, something so pointless, they'll just so easily get distracted and go around into chit chatting instead of doing the job. But those who have this is part of section 8 of the diagnostic criteria. They have this insistence on sameness, that they don't like differences. They seem to hate it whenever someone's different. They want everyone to be the same. This obsession with conformity and so on. And this symptom prevents them from thinking outside of the box. It prevents them thinking independently. It causes a great lack of creativity. That certainly sounds like another deficit to me. Individuals who suffer from neurotypicality are also too concerned about what people think about them. When really the truth is, why doesn't everyone go saying to people what they think about you? Usually because of the intentional dishonesty, they tend to keep their mouth shut, the ones who have a negative view. So it's not as if you can please everyone, but they seem to think they've got to please everyone about their appearance and so on. But you never can please everyone, as everyone has different views. But they are so insecure about attention with who they interact with. Those with neurotypicality, they are so insecure about what they're saying, that they're so unkeen that they don't know you're paying attention, that they demand you to make eye contact. Even though eye contact has nothing to do with communication and interaction, they go demanding eye contact because they are so insecure. In school and so on, they go teaching that if you want someone's attention, you've got to be doing something interesting that will get their attention, and so on. But we come to find that those who suffer from neurotypicality, they often complain about not receiving attention, but they're always talking about the most boring things in their back and forth conversations. It's things like, oh, the weather's nice today. Oh, but what's interesting about that? It might be more interesting if they said something about the weather. Like, what if they spoke about the climate change, of how the climate change affects the weather? That'd be more interesting, and you might get some attention from that. So the idea that neurotypicals teach Like you've got to do something interesting to get attention, but then expect attention when you don't see anything interesting. That just seems so illogical. Neurotypicals tend to have a great lack of detail. They don't seem to see many details about things. They always tend to overlook that they miss so much. Another deficit we often see is they are intentionally dishonest and they like to tiptoe around the truth. Like say, can't you read between the lines? They seem to have no sense of direct communication. They must always twist things and so on, have double meaning, and again it just seems pointless communicating that way. Then there's this great lack of logical thinking. Like they go making the claim that autistic people have social deficits and so on, but socialising is a mutual responsibility. So they're basically looking in the mirror. They don't seem to realise that they have the difficulty reading emotions of autistic people, that they have a difficulty communicating with autistic people, that they have a difficulty communicating with deaf people, they have a difficulty communicating with blind people. Basically, they have this insistence that everyone should communicate in their preferred way. They have this delusional sense of superiority that their way of doing things is the best way, that we should modify everyone to be just like them. Like in the Feminine Boy project, they wanted to make the feminine boy just like everyone else, and it resulted in suicide. They did gay conversion therapy. They wanted to make all gay people the same way as all neurotypical people because of their insistence that it's better to be heterosexual. And then with autism conversion therapy, making all autistic people indistinguishable from their peers. Again, imposing that their way, that neurotypicals know the best way. And when it comes to obsessive interests and so on, neurotypicals tend to suffer from this obsession with socialising. They seem so obsessed with it that they can never get anything done. They may be interested in something, but because of their obsession with socialising, they don't get to learn much about it. But they don't achieve much. While autistic individuals, they dig deep down into what they are interested in, and they become so talented at it. They do. Now, this disorder, neurotypicality, that causes hypocrisy, the inability to think independently, this insistence that all humans are meant to be the same, really makes me glad to be autistic. And there's many reasons why I like being autistic. Because I'm autistic, I don't care what people think about me. And that enables me to live by my own moral values rather than living by what society values. As an example, I don't value profanity and foul language. I don't value it. I let people do it, use it, because of freedom of speech, but I don't value it. And then when I'm in a big social group and people around are using that language, I still keep my language clean. I don't go using all the profanity and foul language. I stick with my own values. I don't feel the need to fit in like everyone else. I like not being so prone to the group thinking that non-autistic people are so prone to, because that way I can actually question what's going on. For example, when it came to things like wars and so on, World War I and World War II, it's because people would not question the norm. It was this proneness to group thinking that made people fail to question what they were doing. When it came to some things a bit more historical, burning women at the stakes, thinking they were witches, why couldn't anyone question that? And so on. So I'm so glad not to have this illogical thinking, but I've been so prone to group thinking. I actually like not insisting that my way of life is the best way, and everyone else should live the same way as me. By doing so, I get to accept people as who they are. I get to learn who they really are, the real person. I'm not looking at a fake person. I want to know the real one, who are they really? And so on, because I find that much more sincere of them. I would rather have sincere friends who show me who they really are. And because of my autism, the fixated interests, it makes me very talented at that which I'm interested in. But isn't that how everyone develops talents? They remain fixated on something specific, then it makes them become so good at it. Like the saying, practice makes perfect. So I staying fixated and practicing, isn't that heading me in the direction of perfect? I obviously won't become perfect, but it sends me in that direction and makes me more talented at it. Because if you've got so many interests, you can't learn much about it if you're doing so many things. And I also like not having this delusional sense of superiority, because it prevents me from being so arrogant, and it prevents me from having such bigoted views. My way is best mean everyone else is wrong. It lets me see that there's more than one answer. It's not everyone should have the same answer, but allows me to see from more than one angle. So I like not having these bigoted views by not seeing myself as superior compared to others, and not being full of bigotry. Obviously, I've got my ego. I can sense an ego inside myself, and personally, I would think any YouTuber, I would say any YouTuber's got a level of ego at least. Otherwise, their channel isn't really at heart of what they're trying to do. Like, say if there's someone against anti-MLMs, for example, they must have some kind of ego in order to be standing against it. Just like I've got my ego standing against the ideology of being normal. As is there any such thing as being normal? You can see that I'm against that, and that's an ego. It's this proneness to group thinking that caused the eugenics movement and the Nazi Holocaust, and all of that resulted in both world wars, which is more evidence it was this proneness to group thinking. It was this hypocrisy that comes from neurotypicality that caused the loss of hundreds of millions of innocent lives, and it was all because of this insistence that everyone must be the same, thinking, we're going to produce paradise on earth. And we found that all the racism, sexism, ableism, discrimination results from this insistence that everyone must be the same, because it marginalises groups of people out, and then you've divided the human race, and by doing so, you want to eliminate them from the human race, including the innocent ones. I'm so glad I do not have the brain circuits that lead me to such discriminatory, racist, sexist, ableist ideologies that result in the loss of innocent lives. Are we ever going to fix neurotypical brains? Are any scientists trying to cure all these destructive neurotypical traits? If not, perhaps we should start doing so. It would reduce all this hypocrisy in our world. It would prevent wars from occurring again. It could reduce the poverty, because the poverty is from prone thinking, this group thinking. So perhaps we should fix neurotypicals instead. If you've made it this far, I hope you understand why I like being autistic and why I don't like the idea of being like a non-autistic person, of the way those of you who are not autistic, the way your brains function. I hope you understand why I don't want your brain. after all of this. Thank you for listening.